There is a window, 90 seconds wide, from the moment your car pulls into the lot to the moment you shake the salesman's hand. In that window, before you have said a single word, before you have asked a single question, they already know how much you're going to pay. Not an estimate, not a guess, a target number, built from watching you. I sold cars for 15 years. I stood at auction lanes and I sat in finance offices, and I watched managers clock buyers from across the lot before the salesman even walked over. There is a system for reading you. It has a name inside the industry. They call it the up system. And the first phase of it has nothing to do with the car you're looking at. It has everything to do with how you walked. This is what I could never get comfortable with, because once I understood how precise it was, how deliberate the training behind it was, I couldn't pretend the game was fair. Dealers spend tens of thousands of dollars every year on sales training programs. Courses built by people who spent careers studying buyer psychology. Robert Cialdini's influence principles applied to the car lot. Disc profiling, neuro-linguistic programming. These aren't fringe ideas, they are curricula, sold to dealer groups across the country, packaged into weekend workshops, and drilled into every salesman before he ever greets a customer. And you walk in there with nothing. The average American buys a used car once every 4 to 6 years. The salesman does it 40 times a month. That is not a skills gap. That is a designed information asymmetry. And the first place it shows up, before the price negotiation, before the trade-in conversation, before the finance office, is in how they read your body the moment you arrive. Here's what they're clocking in those first 90 seconds. And then I'll tell you exactly how to neutralize every one of them. The first thing they see is your vehicle. Before you open your door, a salesman, or in larger stores, a designated lot greeter, has already walked to the window and identified your trade-in, make, model, year, and condition, in under 10 seconds. Most stores now have apps that pull a live auction value with a VIN scan. Some use license plate readers in the lot entrance. Your car's approximate market value is known before you've touched the door handle. Why does that matter? Because your trade-in is the single most profitable tool in the dealer's negotiating arsenal. According to NADA data, the average dealer makes between $1,200 and $2,800 in hidden profit on trade-in transactions, separate from the profit on the vehicle they sell you. That number exists because they know what your car is worth before you do, and how they use that knowledge depends on everything that happens in the next 80 seconds. So the vehicle is red. Then you step out. They're watching your pace. This sounds simple. It isn't. A buyer who walks quickly toward the inventory, heading straight to a specific car, broadcasts one specific thing. They've already done research. They know what they want. They're in decision mode. That buyer gets a different approach than someone who strolls, wanders, drifts down a row without clear direction. The wanderer gets time, gets questions, gets rapport building. The salesman who approaches a wanderer isn't trying to show them a car. He's trying to discover their emotional state first, because a buyer without a clear destination is a buyer who hasn't committed yet. And a buyer who hasn't committed yet can be steered. The focus buyer gets urgency. That one just came back from the shop. We had someone looking at it this morning. Scarcity, delivered immediately, because the salesman knows this buyer has already done comparison shopping. The goal is to stop them from leaving and going somewhere else. Two different buyers, two entirely different plays, detected by pace alone. They watch your eyes next. Where you look first tells them what you care about. A buyer who walks up to a vehicle and immediately opens the door. They're interior focused. Comfort, technology, creature features. That's an emotional buyer. They're buying how the car feels. The F&I office is going to hear about seat protection packages and extended warranties with interior coverage. A buyer who circles the car, looks at the tyres, crouches to check panel gaps, looks underneath. That's an analytical buyer. They've read reviews. They know the common failure points on that model. They're harder to move emotionally. They respond to data, not story. A salesman dealing with an analytical buyer pivots immediately, pulls out inspection records, points out every documented service, leads with the Carfax before being asked. This classification happens in under 20 seconds of observing where your eyes go. The industry term for these types is emotional buyer versus logical buyer. There's a whole training module around it, because each type has a different closing sequence, different objections, different levers, and they've already decided which one you are before they say hello. Then comes the handshake. And this is where it gets precise. Sales training programs, specifically programs like Joe Verde's, which has trained dealership staff in over 40 countries, or Grant Cardone's automotive courses, dedicate entire sections to reading the handshake and the initial physical posture of a buyer. Grip strength, eye contact duration, who initiates, whether the buyer's shoulders are open or closed, whether they make a half-turn back toward their car, which signals an exit instinct, a buyer who is already thinking about leaving. These are not casual observations. They are scored. Internally, many dealers rate ups, incoming customers, on a scale of 1 to 5 for heat. Heat meaning how close to buying they appear. A high heat buyer gets a closer, a senior salesman. Sometimes the floor manager personally comes out. A low heat buyer gets the newest guy on the floor. You didn't choose your salesman. Your body language did. The last thing they clock in that window is your company. Who you brought with you matters enormously. A buyer who comes alone is easy to isolate. There's no second voice, no dissenting opinion, no one to say, let's think about it, when you're in the box. Industry research, including a study published in the Journal of Consumer Research, shows that solo buyers close at significantly higher rates on same-day visits than buyers who come with a companion, specifically because companions introduce friction into the emotional momentum the salesman is building. A buyer who comes with a spouse is evaluated differently. Which one speaks first? Which one looks at the price sticker? Which one looks at the salesman for approval? Because in that dynamic, one person is the decision maker and one is the influencer. The salesman's job is to identify which is which in the first 30 seconds and direct his energy at the decision maker while keeping the influencer emotionally comfortable. A buyer who brings a mechanic or a knowledgeable friend, someone who immediately starts asking technical questions, triggers a completely different internal alert. That's a threat. The training handles this too. It's called third-party influence management. The goal is to separate that third party from the decision maker, either physically or conversationally, as quickly as possible. Now you know the system. Here is how you dismantle it. The first move you make before you step out of your car. Check your own vehicle's value, not a rough idea. The number. Go to Nader Guides at naderguides.com or to Edmunds Private Party Value at edmunds.com. Both are free. Input your exact trim, mileage and condition honestly. Screenshot the result. You are going to reference this number when they bring up your trade-in, and you are going to have done it before they ever see your car. The reason this matters structurally. Dealers are trained to introduce the trade-in late in the conversation, after you are emotionally committed to the vehicle you're looking at. That sequencing is not accidental. Once you love a car, you become psychologically motivated to make the trade-in number work. If your trade-in value is presented before emotional commitment, you will fight for it harder. The CFPB has published consumer guidance specifically warning buyers about delayed trade-in disclosures for this reason. Knowing your number in advance doesn't just arm you, it flattens their leverage. State it early, unprompted. Before we get into anything, I want to be clear that I know my trade-in is worth approximately X based on NADA. Watch the salesman's response. That response tells you everything about how this dealership operates. The second move is about pace. You are going to slow down deliberately. When you get out of your car, pause. Don't walk toward anything immediately. Stand beside your vehicle for 15 to 20 seconds. Look at the lot generally. This is not hesitation. This is a signal, and it sends the opposite of urgency. A buyer who pauses communicates that they are in no hurry, that they have options, that they are not emotionally pre-committed. The salesman who approaches a calm, still buyer uses a different script than the one who approaches a buyer already walking fast toward a specific vehicle. You have essentially moved yourself from hot to warm on their internal heat score. That changes which salesman approaches you and changes the first question they ask. This also gives you time to do something specific before the conversation begins. Use the VIN decoder on the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's website, nhtsa.gov, to pull the vehicle's recall history. It takes 45 seconds. Any open recalls show up immediately, for free. According to NHTSA data, approximately 47 million vehicles on US roads have unresolved open recalls at any given time. That number is not a rounding error. It is a structural feature of the used car market. If the vehicle has an open recall, that is a negotiating point you have before you've said a single word about price. The third move resets the eye contact dynamic. The goal is to prevent rapid profiling. When you approach a vehicle, do not immediately go to the door handle. Do not immediately circle the car, scrutinizing panels. Both of those moves have been categorized before you intended them to be. Instead, stand at a slight distance and look at the vehicle generally for a moment. Then pull out your phone and run the VIN. Here's the tool, iccars.com, free, or vinaudit.com at approximately $9.99 per report. VIN Audit pulls from the same data sources as Carfax, but at a fraction of the cost. Type in the VN from the driver's door jamb. The report shows ownership history, accident flags, title washing indicators, and odometer readings at each reported service interval. Odometer rollback is more common than buyers realize. The National Motor Vehicle Title Information System has documented hundreds of thousands of odometer fraud cases in the past decade. The FTC estimates odometer fraud costs American car buyers over $1 billion annually. A 9-bit 99 VIN report is not a convenience. It is insurance. While you run the report, you are doing several things simultaneously. You are reading the vehicle's actual history. You are not presenting obvious buying signals. And you are visually communicating to the salesman that you have a process, which immediately raises your profile from easy up to informed buyer. That reclassification happens in real time, and it changes the entire conversation that follows. Everything covered in this video, plus the full document checklist, every question to ask, every red flag to verify, every counter move for the finance office, is compiled in the Dealer Vault Guide. Link is in the description. It's the resource I wish I could have handed every customer who walked onto my lot. Keep watching, because the next move is the one that specifically neutralizes the emotional pressure tactics they build after the handshake. And it's something almost no buyer ever does. The fourth move is about the company you bring, and it is specific. Don't bring a companion who doesn't have a defined role. Random emotional support from a friend or spouse without a briefed function actually works against you. The salesman is trained to manage that dynamic. Instead, brief whoever you bring with you on a single job before you get out of the car. Their job is to be the skeptic. Not aggressive, not hostile, skeptical. Their one phrase is, "I'm not sure about that." That's it. Every time enthusiasm builds in the conversation, every time you start to lean in, they say, "I'm not sure about that." This single interjection resets the emotional temperature in the room. It introduces friction at precisely the moment the salesman needs smooth momentum. Sales training programs specifically teach that the close happens in a window of peak emotional commitment. Friction in that window, especially friction that appears to come from someone the buyer trusts, is the highest percentage method of breaking a premature close. You are essentially deploying the same psychological tools against them that they deploy against you. That's not manipulation. That's parity. If you're shopping alone, the phrase is, "I need to make a call before I decide anything." Not, "I'll think about it." That phrase has a scripted salesman response. It's called the "think it over" close. What is it you need to think about? Let's talk through it right now. They're trained to keep you in the building. "I need to make a call" is external. It implies accountability to someone outside the room. The training doesn't have a clean counter to that because it removes you physically from the pressure environment. The fifth move happens before you ever discuss price, and it is the one dealers are least prepared for. Ask for the dealer's purchase invoice, not the Monroney sticker, not the asking price. The invoice, the document that shows what the dealership paid for the vehicle at auction or from a wholesaler. Most buyers don't know this document exists. For new cars, dealers are legally required to provide it upon request under FTC disclosure rules. For used vehicles, the requirement varies by state, but the ask alone does something important. It signals that you understand the margin structure, that you know the dealer didn't pay asking price for the car, that you understand there is a spread between cost and sale price, and you intend to negotiate within that spread rather than against the asking price. The average dealer markup on a used vehicle between auction cost and lot price is between $2,000 and $5,000, according to data from Black Book and Manheim Auctions quarterly market reports. Some vehicles carry significantly more. Trucks and SUVs regularly see markups of $4,000 to $8,000 depending on market conditions. You cannot negotiate effectively against a sticker. You can negotiate effectively against a documented cost. If they won't show you the invoice, which is common on used vehicles, your counter is simple. Go to Manheim Market Report Pricing at mmrmanheim.com or to Blackbook's consumer-facing tool at blackbookusa.com. Both publish average wholesale auction prices by vehicle condition. Pull the comparable, show them the number. State that your offer is being based on market cost plus a fair margin, not on their asking price. That single move shifts the negotiating frame from, "Can we come down a little?" to "Here is what this car costs in the market, and here is what I'm willing to pay above that." Completely different conversation. Completely different outcome. Here is what changes when you walk onto a lot, with these 5 moves loaded. You know your trade-in value before they see your car. You control your pace and prevent profiling in the first 60 seconds. You've already pulled the recall history and VIN report before the salesman reaches you. You have a briefed companion or a specific exit phrase, and you're negotiating from wholesale cost, not from their asking price. That is not a prepared buyer. That is a different category of person entirely. I've seen it from the other side of that handshake. When a truly prepared buyer walks in, there is a moment, about 4 sentences into the conversation, where the salesman recalibrates. The questions are different. The responses are specific. The buyer is not reacting to the salesman's frame. They have their own frame, and the salesman feels it. The temperature in that conversation drops. It becomes a transaction instead of a performance. They will still try. They have practiced every objection. But the closing percentage on a genuinely informed buyer is a fraction of the closing percentage on a standard customer. That's documented in dealer sales training itself. It's why they work so hard to prevent you from being that buyer. The training exists specifically because informed buyers cost them money. You just became that buyer. Every time this video gets shared, someone sees it the day before they go car shopping. One person who would have sat in that finance office and signed for a paint sealant they didn't need. One person who would have taken $800 less for their trade-in because they didn't know the number. One person who would have been profiled in 90 seconds and steered toward a vehicle they couldn't afford. That's the math of sharing this. Not views, not an algorithm. 1 fewer easy target per share. If you want to stay armed, Because this is one piece of a much larger system, subscribing keeps this information in front of you as it comes out. The channel exists to transfer what took me 15 years to learn to the people the industry counts on never knowing it. Next video, we're going inside the finance office, specifically the 4 add-on products that carry the highest dealer profit margin, and the 2 of them that have 0 verifiable value. That's a conversation the industry spends enormous resources making sure never happens publicly. It's happening here. Everything shared here is general consumer information. Always have a qualified mechanic perform a full pre-purchase inspection before buying any used vehicle.